Everybody sit on the edge of the rug. A, B, C, D, E. This program, when they started preschool in Illinois, was specifically for kids with at-risk criterion, kids who were in the 10% of the non-90% developing in normal ranges. And so that's what this program has always been. Unfortunately, the state didn't really delineate how you would decide your at-risk characteristics, because we would go to some fairly affluent communities and they would have these grants and we'd walk in and say, so your at-risk characteristics are what? We would be just shocked. We'd say, these kids look like our kindergartners in Bensenville, you know. So we were always very cognizant of the fact that we wanted our tax dollars to go to the most neediest kids who really needed those services prior to getting to kindergarten. So,
¿Este qué es? Lengua. ¿Y este?
4-year-olds should have about 3,000 to 4,000 words in their spontaneous vocabulary. Our kids often come with anywhere from literally 10, 20 words, some students. Our average student, I would say, has 500 to maybe 1,000. So you can see they're well under the average of what an average 4-year-old has. So when you begin with that level of your language level being so low, then all your other domains are typically going to be affected.
An at-risk child has holes that they need filled in before they can really start at a level playing field as everybody else. And so that really what the program does is it kind of figures out where they're at, help support the areas that they may not have, and then it boosts them along the way. And we see students, we saw a student, I have an example of a student that started 2 years ago and is now a kindergartner, and 2 years ago wasn't speaking, did not say one word, said 1 to 2 word phrases after the first month of school, and in kindergarten, went to a bilingual kindergarten, and now our expectation is by November that students have all of their letters and sounds by November in kindergarten. That's our district's expectation. And I was looking through the teacher's data, and sure enough, she was one of the students, one of I think the 6 students that had all of her letters and sounds. So given the supports and in pre-K program, she was able to go so much further and really reach her potential.
His name, when I stay with him, he asked me, can you spell my name, please? I said, yeah, and he can write his name and last name too. Yeah, but
he has a long last name.
Yeah, yeah, he's intelligent. The school helped him. Yeah.
It's not that they had intellectual deficits, it was more that they had exposure deficits. And so all of a sudden you can see a child who you feel would have been struggling in kindergarten and first grade, and you go like, oh my gosh, that student is going to be really successful in first grade. So you have that whole category where these might be A and B students. Had they not had the program, you know, they could have been sitting there in that more struggling range in the average C range as a first, second, third grader. So you have that category. Then you do have the other category of kids who the light bulb doesn't come on as quickly in it, and so we can change those pathways in the brain to clear out the fog, so to speak, and create a, starting with a country road, but make it into a superhuman highway, so to speak, where they understand how to process material because they've had experiences at an early age.
Yeah, we actually
just moved here, right?
Yeah, last year in September. And the same, we were looking for a preschool, and the screening was going on here, so he was selected. And it was difficult in the early stages because we were from a different country, and you know, it was all different people here, so it took a lot of time to get adjusted. Not only for him, it was the same for me too. I felt, you know, like kind of left out, like a fish out of water in the beginning, but then Mrs. Adele, as she said, and Mrs. Morgan, they, you know, made us feel very comfortable. Said it's a different culture, and So, but then he got used to it and he was fine. Now he's doing well.
The state does require longitudinal study that we fill out, and so for years we saw that there was a huge difference, and we were comparing it in our district as well. Those kids who didn't have a preschool experience and those that did, how they were much more successful academically.
Working with the families to understand that they play a role, and it's not all the teachers, and that the parents are the child's first teacher. So that component, that family time, that activity is really important to help the parents start kind of getting that information.
Anybody remember what we use this tail for when we find trees? What does he use it for? To balance. Have them fill out a contract. So there's a parent contract that specifically includes Maslow about feeding and resting and loving, and then bringing your child to the classroom for a settling in of the in the learning environment. And we explain that that is a time for you to learn things that you will be able to do at home with your child. And it includes everything, not just the literacy part that I mentioned, but we do scissor work, fine motor, talking about the pincer grip, and how a child needs to hold a writing instrument. We do math, we do a fair amount of counting patterns so that parents learn about what kinds of math things they can be doing at home. In talking to the parents, then of course we commend them and affirm them, which is so important. I think sometimes we forget that. We tell parents what they're not doing instead of what they are doing. And we work really hard at telling them, great job for coming and bringing your child every day. And
it was different for me being grandma because, of course, and he's my only grandson. Yeah. So I'm like, there's nothing wrong with him. What do you mean that there's something wrong with him? He's perfect in every way. So they were just like so delicate in saying, that, no, there's nothing wrong. It's just he needs help in certain areas. And I was like, impossible, but in her kind way,
that's true.
She got me to accept that he had some issues.
And have they been able to kind of chart that for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
As a principal and as teachers, our goal is to keep the students in mind. That's our end, helping the students be successful, and seeing their feeling of the success and them realizing they're being successful is amazing. Whether it's behaviorally or academically or speech, they realize they're doing well, and that's probably one of the most rewarding things.